And then now I should start. Okay, so hi, Michelle. I know that you're a senior accountant at WNC. Could you tell me a bit about your current roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, so right now, as a senior accountant, I do two types of accounting. So essentially, accounting is making sure your financials are clean and they're accurate. Every company has it, obviously, when you do business and operations. So the first part is corporate accounting. So that's more involved with people's payroll, getting paid, um, also the corporate company's finances. So anything that they order or any insurance or any other taxes that they pay. Usually corporate accounting takes care of the corporate books. So that's one side of it. And the other side that I do is project accounting. So WNC is a general contractor, which is basically just a fancier term for like the middleman for a construction company. So usually you have an owner and then you have a general contractor, which is the middleman, and then you have all the people actually on site. So they're called subcontractors. So what my company does, at least on the project side, is they're the ones organizing everyone to make sure that, whatever apartments or parks or whatever that's being built for the owner actually gets done on time. So for project accounting, I essentially, you get assigned to like a certain project. So construction site, mostly apartments. So you basically ensure every month that, all the finances, all your contract amounts, all your numbers tie every month, because the owner is tracking to see how much completion has been built for their project. So they want to see like, a budget report, a progress report. And so it's up to the accountant to make sure like all the finances and all the progression money wise financially are up to date and are accurate to see where they're at with the project.
Cool. For the first part, I think you said company. Do you do any like internal audits?
We don't do internal audits, but we do have third party auditors. So essentially, we prepare our working papers. So we make sure that we have all our financials that are clean uh, and prepared for auditors to look at, which is done usually annually. So towards the end of the year, we'll have auditors come and go through our financials to make sure everything's correct.
Yeah, awesome. I did a financial accounting class, and like that's one of the three terms I remember.
Yeah.
Everything else, but yeah. So how did you get started in this industry, and what has your career path been like?
So I started actually as an administrative assistant. So basically, like receptionist, front desk. Um, so I answered phone calls. I ordered supplies online, and I kept, I did everyone's mail. I answered phone calls, and eventually, the CFO, which is the chief financial officer at my first job, she was getting behind on her financials on the
Mhm.
accounting side. So they're called bank reconciliation. So she asked me if I could help. And so gradually over the years, she's kind of trained me and mentored me. And eventually I became an accounting assistant. She showed me, debits and credits, expenses, income, all that fun stuff. And eventually I became a property accountant. And from there, I've most of my career has been as a property accountant. It's only this year I started as a construction, I guess you want to say, accountant. But yeah, I came from administrative, then I built up to accounting assistant. At one point, I was accounting manager, so I had a whole team under me at my last job. So I had about, I think, 6 or 7 staff accountants under me. So I would train them and make sure all their financials were correct. And yeah, I just started this new company.
Awesome. Do you think what you did in undergrad, or did you like get any higher levels of education higher than that, or like, do you think what you did in undergrad really mattered for this job?
Um, I would say yes and no. So I double majored in psychology and business economics. At that time, I just knew I wanted to do something in business and finance. So I kept it broad. I wasn't really sure or didn't know I was going to be in accounting. But if you're going to be in accounting, definitely get an accounting major because a lot of employers are looking right now. There's actually a shortage of accountants right now.
Hmm.
Newer generations, they're less certified public accountants, so CPA. So that's probably the most important thing license you can get if you want to be in accounting. So if you're going into the undergrad program, definitely get into accounting because you'll need, I think, like at least 10 to 15 classes to even take the CPA exam after you graduate. So if you don't have a certain amount of credits, you can't take this exam. And if you don't have this exam, you don't get this license. And most people, you make a lot more money, you network better. So the chances of you finding a job for accounting is like just, I don't know, tenfold compared to not having it. So, and even if you don't, say you do become like me and just have a different major, say like business economics or even something completely different, right? You can still get, you can still work towards your degree, like community college or, study while you're doing your job. So there's always plenty of opportunities, but definitely go back and get your accounting classes and get your CPA is what I would recommend. It's what people look at these days.
Okay. Did you, from my understanding, so you didn't get your CPA? You don't.
No, so yeah, so you, getting your CPA is makes you stand out more. So you
Mhm.
don't necessarily need your CPA license to become an accountant. It just gives you a better chance and better networking. Obviously, you can still be someone like me and just kind of work your way up and get mentored by your supervisors. And it's pretty hands on. So it's definitely trainable. You can learn it on the job. But I think it's a lot, I guess, easier because a lot of accounting, just like, I don't know, lawyers and doctors, there's a lot of terms, specialized
Mhm.
terms that unless you study for it, you don't really know what that means, especially like I said before, like debits and credits, expenses, accruals, prepaids. A lot of these terms, if you study for it and you went to school for it, it's a lot easier to um, get, I guess, bring yourself up for that job. It's possible, but it's harder than if you went to school for it. You're more acclimated. I guess you're more
Yeah.
familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that it is going down. I don't know. Taking that course was not not my thing. I was like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this.
It's definitely a little different. It's not like math or, language arts or, chemistry. It's very much niche. And so you it's like one of those things you just have to take and understand and know the jargon because if you don't, um, it's that much harder. But it's possible. It's just a lot easier if you go
It's
to
not my
school.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Okay. What does a typical day look like for you? Some people say weeks. Doesn't really matter.
Typical day, it depends. So obviously, with accounting, most of what we do is dictated by a financial close cycle. So typically in a company, it'll be like a monthly close cycle. So what that means is within a month, um, you basically go through all the income, all the expenses, all the prepaids, all the financials, and you basically reconcile and make sure everything is accurate for the month. And so within this 1 month period, depending on what day and which week, usually we have a calendar. So accounting, it's pretty structured. So I recommend, accounting to people that are, more organized, like
Mhm.
structured, routine. It's very much on paper. And so we usually have a calendar that tells us what certain things are due for the close. So, for example, oh, you have maybe 1 or 2 days in the beginning to do your bank reconciliations. Then the next 2 days, you're going to post your income. And the next couple days, you're going to go ahead and make sure all your expenses look clean. And so, I get in, I go through my emails, I see if anybody needs help with anything, especially my supervisor. Other than that, I pull up, we usually have like an Outlook calendar, and from there I usually have a to-do list and an agenda. So I go by that. And so I'm able to get my work done. Because a lot of accounting is it's very deadline oriented, right? So you got to make sure everything's done by the time that the month end uh, closes. Yes.
Awesome. Does it like when you say it's not clean, does it refer to like there's a gap there and then you have to find it? Like there's a gap.
Yeah. So what that means is just so there's different parts of a company's accounting department, right? So you have the main accountants that go through the books, but then you've got like, accounts payables and accounts receivable. So accounts payable are the people that pay your invoices, and accounts receivable are all the people that receive, payments from customers if there are any. And so what that means is whenever accounts payable pays the bills, you need to make sure you review that wherever they're coding these expenses hits the right accounts. So for example, if you have internet services, you want to make sure it goes into the internet account and not, I don't know, software maintenance. So there's something called a trial balance. And essentially, it's an entire like map or list, you can say, of all the accounts you have for your company. And so you want to make sure all the invoices that they're paying hits the right buckets, hits the right accounts. Otherwise, when you report your financials, like your cash flow and income statement, you could have like 5,000 in like internet and like, I don't know, $10 in phone services. So you want to just make sure that they're hitting the right buckets. And aside from that, so most accounting, it's on an accrual basis. So I'm not sure if you've heard of that term, but there's two types of accounting. There's cash and there's accrual basis accounting. So cash is basically whenever money comes in or whenever you pay things, that's the day you use. But most big companies and most people use accrual basis, which means that you recognize income and expense when they're due. And so say if accounts payable paid internet, but the internet is only from July 15th to June 15th to July 14th, you still have the second half of July that's missing, right? And so if you're closing July, you only have the first 14, 15 days. So you actually have to put something called an accrual to make sure that you have the second month estimated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by having your expenses clean. First, are they in the right buckets? And two, did you actually accrue or make sure that the entire month of services are there?
How do you spell accrual? What does it start with?
It's ACCRUAL.
Yeah.
That's an accrual.
Honestly, I just
So,
recognize the terms. I don't know what they mean.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, everything is I understand what you're saying, but just
Right. It's there. You're familiar with the term. So it's basically meaning that you don't have all your expenses for the month. So you accrue for something. So you guesstimate, right? So you're saying, okay, I know my bill is $100 a month and I've only have $50 for that month. I need to make sure I add something called a journal entry. So that's probably familiar to you.
yeah, I think
Journal entry is basically what you use to record whatever you need to make sure your financials are accurate. So you would use a journal entry to budget $50 more for July to make sure that that internet account has $100 and not just 50, because if you don't accrue for it, then you're underestimating, you're understating your expenses, and so that's not accurate.
Mhm. Cool.
Mhm.
So I did learn something.
Yeah.
What skills or qualifications with a soft skill focus do you think are essential for someone in your position?
Definitely detail oriented. I mean, you could possibly be in accounting without it, but it's definitely better if you do, because there's so many numbers and so many little steps and processes that the whole part of accounting is making sure every detail that rolls up into the financials is correct. So detail oriented. I would also say communication skills. Accounting is very much independent work, and what I mean by that is when you're accountant, you're assigned a set of books, right? You're assigned a set of you're in charge of the financials for this project or this part of corporate. And so you want to make sure that you have everything squared away. And so you talk with a lot of different people, right? Accounts payable, accounts receivable, project accounting. So even though you're very independent, you still have to be able to like send emails and, you know, accounting, there can be confusing concepts or terms. So for someone that's on the field and you need to ask them a question, you need to make sure that you're not just saying, oh, I accrued for 50, you know, I only accrued for, you know, $10. They should have done for 50. If you're trying to ask them like, oh, question related to that, you can't really just say accruals. They won't really understand. You just have to say something like, oh, you know, we're trying to budget. So for like operations, they know what budget means. And so a lot of the times you're trying to translate what you do as an accountant, all the, you know, technical terms, and make sure that other people understand it, not just accountants. And so I would say that's an important skill. And
Yeah,
then
with your clients.
yeah, because a lot of not just clients, but like other people in your team too. So I would say everyone, because it's very easy to like go through something and you understand it, but if you speak a certain way, a lot of people won't. And so you have to make sure that you connect the bridge. And so if you're asking them, oh, just go ahead and do that, they're going to be like, what do you mean? I don't know what that means. They'll be like, oh, okay, no, I need you to do this like this. And they're like, oh, okay. So and then the last soft skill I think is really important is basically being organized, because accounting's so deadline oriented that it's very easy to like lose track of time and not know where you are in the close cycle. So I have like, I use like OneNote, I use Outlook reminders. I have like 3, 4 different lists and agendas to make sure that I hit my goals. And honestly, it's helped me a lot because it's very easy. If you have like 20 things to do and you don't write it down, you're not going to remember all of them and when each one's due, right? So I've seen other accountants kind of scramble and have like loose papers and not remember what they do. So it's pretty important to make sure that everything's neat and tidy, because someone could ask you for one specific question and you need to be able to tell them what it is. So
Always be ready.
yeah,
Okay. I think we have 10 minutes left, so let's move a little faster, I guess.
sure.
We can skip number 5 and go to number 6. So what do you find most fulfilling about your work?
Um, I I think it's challenging, I guess. I guess that's a good way of saying it. I think it's stimulating. So kind of like, you know, puzzle pieces. A lot of it is gathering a lot of different resources and making sure everything fits. So a lot of critical thinking. So I think it's very I don't know, challenging and stimulating. And when you figure something out, like a variance or something that doesn't tie, and you figure it out, it's like one of those like, oh, booyah moments, you know, like where you just like, I've been looking for this and you narrowed it down, it's right there, and everything hits to 0 variance or something. So I just find it very you know, stimulating, challenging, and it's fun when you're able to solve it. So I like that part.
So it's technically like a pretty technical job in a
It
way.
is it is very technical. Yes, I would say that.
Other than like personal calendar tools, are there any specific tools that you rely on in your work?
Yes, we rely heavily on Microsoft Excel. So everything that we don't do, and okay, so the 2 biggest things that we use is an accounting software, right? So that's where we record our journal entries, all our financials are tied, everything that's paid and received. So right now I'm using something that's called Yardi. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's basically the biggest accounting software for like property management or projects. And so if we're not in there, in order to make sure everything looks good in Yardi, we do all our work in Excel. So all our reconciliations, all our backup, everything's done through there. So a lot of the times you're comparing 2 or 3 sets of data and you use like, you know, some ifs, adds, some all, or you do VLOOKUPs, right? You compare two columns of data to make sure you know what the variance is. So I would say those two are the most important.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's what I want to add. Are there any like common misconceptions about your job or industry?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think the biggest misconception is that all accountants are CPAs. So a lot of the times when I tell people I'm an accountant, they automatically think I'm a CPA and they automatically think that all I do is file tax returns for people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times they'll be like, "Oh, tax season's really busy. Have you finished all your clients' returns?" And I'm like, "No, I'm an accountant. You know, this is private accounting. I'm not a CPA, so I make sure all the financials for a company look correct." And so a lot of them get confused. They just hear accountant and they think I file taxes. But really, accountant is a really broad term. There's so many different types of accounting people, right? You got
Yes.
auditors, you got accountants, and you got actual people that file your taxes, like CPAs. So, but most people just think it's just taxes.
What is the breakdown for like people who actually like do the taxes? Is it like 50% of the field or?
Um, I don't think it's that high. I think it's less. I don't know off the top of my head, but as I was saying before, it's really gone down in numbers of people. So before, I guess the people that are retiring, so I guess mostly boomers, there were a lot more back in the day, but
Mhm.
I've been reading articles and talking with friends that, with millennials and Gen Z, there's a lot less studying for the CPA and a lot less getting their licenses. And so you're seeing basically a bigger demand from companies for CPAs because it's basically like a fancy license, right? So if you have it, you
Mhm.
can work for big companies. Like, I don't know, what's that company called? Blizzard. It's like a video game company. Or if you want to go work for a CPA firm, you absolutely have to have like your licenses and certificates. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. It just makes it that much easier to find a job.
Okay. I know we've talked a lot about like it's dying, it's a dying industry currently, but
Yeah.
do you see any opportunities for growth in your field?
Yeah. So there's a lot right now because there's so many people retiring and there's not as many people right now. So basically, there's a shortage of talent. So it's actually one of the hottest industries or parts of work that you can do right now. So a lot of accountants, they're looking for CPAs because there's not enough. A lot more, I feel like a lot more people are trying to go back to school, or they a lot of accountants are shopping around because they know they're in demand. So you can easily make like six figures now for just like an accounting job, like just senior accountant. Before, it used to only be, I don't know, 60, 70,000, but because there's not enough of us, everybody's demanding them because there's not enough, to fill the people retiring. That, yeah, you can actually like shop around. So I would say the prospects are good. If people are interested in accounting, they should do it because doesn't matter which company you go to, you always need someone doing your financials. It's not something like, you
I know
know,
they do.
just marketing or something. It's, people doing your
Mhm.
finances.
Dang, maybe I should maybe I should pick it up
It's
again.
it's really, yeah, it's really in demand. I would say it's definitely growing. If you get an accounting degree, expect to actually get a job in accounting because people are looking. Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
Something to
Um,
think about.
maybe.
No, it's
Well,
a
I
bit
could.
dry though. You have to like routine, you have to like structure, and like if you get bored easily doing the same things, it's probably not for you. You have to like be okay with doing similar things every month.
I think I was like poking my eyes out looking at each column.
Yeah, you have to be a certain type of person. I'd like to say like someone that's kind of, I always say nosy or likes going into details or gossip. If you're like really into the nitty-gritty, this could be your jam. But if you're like a free spirit and you kind of just have everything in your head and you just go with the flow, it's not as much because it's very much highly structured. So yeah, depends.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But
All
it
right.
pays pretty well. Yeah.
Two more questions. Looking back, is there anything you had wish you had known before starting your career?
Yeah, so obviously I kind of wish I went back. Like, first of all, I wish that I knew there was going to be a shortage or how in demand or essential accounting was. So I knew it was a type of job, but I didn't know how like essential or how high in demand it was. So if I had known that it was hot on the market and that people are actually looking for people, I wish I had gone back. You know, even if I didn't major in accounting, I wish I had gone back and studied and done online classes at night and got my CPA while working, you know, my job during the day, and then eventually getting it because uh, certain companies will only hire you if you're CPA. And the other big bonus about getting it, if you are interested in the field, is networking. So, you know, USC, Cal State Fullerton, you know, schools like them, they're known as like financial like powerhouses for their alumni. So if
Hmm.
there's a lot of like opportunities for internships, and if they know you study there or you come from a certain place, there's a lot of networking events that you can actually give your resumes out and
Yeah,
actually
of
talk
course.
to people in the street, and your chances of getting hired is that much better. And you don't like, I want to just say, you don't have to necessarily be in certain schools, right? You can still look up online and see what kind of networking events are in your area. But I feel that with this license, it's easier because, you know, companies are kind of
Yeah.
always want, like, I don't know, 2 to 5 years of experience for something that's interesting or something. And the competition can get hard sometimes.
Does a master's in accounting, is that a popular thing people do?
It can be. I think the most popular thing that, you know, obviously I've been reiterating a bunch of times is the CPA license. But say you're someone like me that majored in something else, or say you were like an engineer or someone that's a business economics major, but they want to go into accounting. That's when you know, master's in accounting
Mm,
makes sense because you already need to take your classes, and obviously you can't go back to undergrad for that. So it's popular because it gives you the chance to get your CPA if you haven't, and even if you don't, it makes like career goals easier. So if you want to, you know, climb up the career ladder, it's a lot easier. So, you know, I don't think I mentioned it, but like typical career path for accounting is like accounting assistant, accountant, senior accountant, then
mm,
accounting manager, then you know, something that's called an assistant controller, a controller. And so eventually you go into vice president, SVP, director, and then eventually you hit the very top position, which is chief financial officer. And so yeah, I definitely recommend someone who, you know, wants to climb at the more executive levels, having a master's
yeah.
is more important. Yeah.
Mhm. Very linear. Okay.
Yeah,
And
very
now
much
one more
so.
question. Can
Sure.
you recommend any resources for someone interested in this field? I guess like outside of taking all those courses for the CPA or like books to study for the CPA. Is there anything like intro to accounting?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good resources, right? So, there's your local library. So if you're interested in like actual like physical textbooks or articles or just, you know, terms or basic knowledge, you can go there. If not, I know I go on Google and I actually, you know, there's a lot of like material online that you can, they explain concepts to you and they even have quizzes and they kind of teach you. They have like online lessons of what certain concepts or what accounting is. So there's actually a lot of stuff you can find. online to see, what it's about and if you have an interest. And so a lot of the times, like I said earlier, people don't really know what accounting is. They just think, oh, taxes. That's what
Mm-hmm.
accounting is. So if you wanted to learn more and you were curious and be like, hey, I want to know, I say either go to your local library and, check out some books, or most most people this day and age just go online and kind of go through like articles and online lessons, and I feel like that helps. And having Microsoft Excel either in your own personal version or somewhere that has it, maybe local library, like I said, and kind of practice, because all of accounting uses Excel. So if that interests you, definitely recommend playing around with that software because you'll need it wherever you go in accounting.
Okay. I'm gonna stop recording now.